Now that we can create a form, let's go ahead and try to pass this test right here, where we're just trying to be able to fill in the fields. Nothing sophisticated about it. And notice that what we need to do before that is fill in all of these. So we need to add our username and email field. So let's go ahead and do that and edit our view. And we know that we need to do a text field this time rather than a password field, and that's for our name. And we need a text field for our email, just like before. So let's go ahead and look and see what that looks like in the web page here, and reload that. But we need to start our server first. And once we do that, now we can reload this page. And we've got our 3 fields. If we go ahead and look at our source code, we can see that we've got our username, email, and password, text field, and password field right here. So we've got those fields ready to fill out. Let's go ahead and see what happens when we run our tests here by bundle exec rspec. And when we do this, it's going to go ahead and run them. And before we had 5 errors not working, and we still have 5 errors that aren't working. So let's go up here, and we can see when it tries to fill in username, it cannot find a field with username. And that is because if we go back and look at our source code right here, there's nothing that says username. We have user underscore name, we have user sub name. We don't have a way to identify this input as our username. And this is also going to help with usability here in a second, but this username field is hardly intelligible to someone using this website that it corresponds to username. So let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So what we're going to do is, for this text field right here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a label. And the way we do that is we do f.label. And now we need to associate this label with a value, with a text input value. We technically could put our labels in different orders than our text fields. And so this is going to be the label for our name. And we want our label to be username, because that's what Capybara is expecting to find to fill out with John Doe. So let's do that and see what happens on our web page first, and then we can run our test and see if that works. So when we look at the web page, we see that username, which is nice because now we know that this text box corresponds to this username, and oh, that's what I should be entering in. And when we run our tests, we should see that it's no longer having trouble filling out username, and we still have 5 failures. So if we look up, we see, oh, we have trouble filling out email. Well, that's a little bit different. This one's named email, this one was named name. So let's look at this HTML again a little bit more carefully. And notice that this is user underscore email and user email. It's email is only a part of the ID and part of the name. Capybara looks in 3 places. It looks in the ID, it looks in the name, and it looks in the label. And for ID and name, a partial match is not good enough. But in the label, it needs that it can allow a prefix if necessary. But we're going to look for exactly email for now, and we can play around with more nice looking things later if we want. So let's add this label for email just like we did with username. And we're going to do that by going here. And we could do this in the right spot. And what happens when we run our server and look at the HTML is that we will get exactly what we want. We get our email text, and so it's going to match. Now, one cool thing that I want to point out here is that if the label is the same as the name of the field, we can drop that off because Rails is smart enough to just create a label. So let's save that. We still have our server running. Reload that page, and you can see that label is still the same. Notice it does capitalize this, so you need to be careful about that. But that makes that label really easy. And then let's put a blank line just for readability in here, and go ahead and run our test again. And what we should see is now it shouldn't have any trouble with our email because we've properly put a label in there, but we still have 5 failures because we're not able to fill in this password right here. So let's fix that real quick by doing the same process. F.label for our password field. Save that. Run our server and reload it. And password is going off the end of the screen right there. But when we look at the HTML, we can see that. And notice that it does the labeling properly. It associates this for with this ID so that this label is known to go with this input field and so forth. So we've got that for each of these 3. It's working properly. If we wanted to focus on making this look a little bit nicer, maybe we could put new lines in here, line breaks or whatever. But we're focusing just on functionality. So we are going to stop our server and run our test. And now we are able to fill out username, we're able to fill out email, we're able to fill out password. Those are the 3 elements that we need to fill out. But we still have 5 failures. And now what you see is they're all having trouble finding a button submit, which is not a surprise because we don't have a submit button on our page. So let's go ahead and add that. Turns out this is really easy. It's just f.submit, and that creates a submit button. So let's run our server once again and look at the web page one more time and reload it. And we see we have our create user button. So now we have our submit button, and if we run our tests, we have our username, our email, our password, and we have our submit button. Notice the name of the submit button was very nicely created as create user because we knew this object was a user. The problem is our tests were expecting the word submit and not create user. So we could either go ahead and change the name of our submit button by passing it submit, and watch this, pass, or we could go ahead and have a better, use that create user text more carefully. And you can see now that the first four methods are passing because now they're trying to go into the create action because it successfully tried to click on that submit button. Let's show what happens when you click on that submit button and start up Rails server again, and we will see a big giant error here. Because now we're trying to post to the user's controller and we haven't written that action yet. So we get a big error in our thing here. But if we look carefully, there was another error that I wanted to point out, and this was a boo-boo on my part. Maybe some of you caught it as you were watching the video. And that is in this last, or well, it's not always the same order because it randomizes it. It says undefined method before here, and that looks different from the action create could not be found in the user controller. And this may be confusing, but fortunately we have a line number that's associated with. So let's go to our tests and go to line 59, and we see, yes, there's that before method. Why doesn't it understand before? I don't get it. So let's get a little more context and look around a little bit, and maybe you see the error. I accidentally typed it here instead of having a nested describe, okay? Because, and it only can have expects and shoulds, click buttons and fill-ins and so forth. It can't have this before method or an it's inside of itself. So had a little mix-up with that test, and so let's fix that, rerun our test here so that all 5 of our tests properly fail by not being able to connect to our create action in our user's controller. And if we look at it carefully, we have that 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now they're all they're not all passing. They're all failing at the point where we would expect them to fail, given the amount of development we've done so far.